The rain had stopped just moments before she stepped off the bus. Madison Clarke adjusted her blazer with trembling fingers, clutching the strap of her purse tightly as she crossed the bustling Manhattan street. Her heels clicked hurriedly against the wet pavement. She was 5 minutes early, but still, she felt late, like life itself was always one step ahead of her. The old office building loomed tall and gray, its glass doors reflecting a stormy sky. She paused outside, heart pounding, and reached inside her coat. Her hand closed around the velvet box she had taken from her mother's jewelry drawer that morning. With a shaky breath, she opened it and fastened the necklace around her neck. It wasn't just any necklace. The sapphire pendant, framed with tiny diamonds and hung on a delicate gold chain, had belonged to her grandmother, passed down to her mother, and, unofficially, borrowed by Madison today. She needed the confidence. The piece was bold, elegant, expensive, everything she wasn't. Her mother would kill her if she found out. Inside, the reception was all glass and steel and money. Madison walked across the marble floor like she belonged there, even though her knees felt like jelly. She gave her name to the receptionist, then took a seat, her fingers brushing the necklace instinctively. She caught her reflection in the black marble wall, dark red hair pulled into a tight bun, subtle makeup, lips pale from nerves. She looked like someone trying to look like someone. "Miss Clarke." She stood too fast. "Yes, hi, that's me." The assistant led her down a long hallway with modern art on the walls and silence that echoed. Madison's heart thumped with every step. They stopped at a set of frosted glass doors, which opened into a minimalist office with a sweeping view of the city. Behind a sleek walnut desk sat a man in his 40s with salt and pepper hair, clean lines of a custom suit, and a gaze so sharp it made her spine straighten. "Mr. Carlisle, this is Madison Clarke." "Thank you, Ellen," he said without looking up. His voice was deep, composed. He finally raised his eyes, and then stopped. His gaze locked on her neck. On the necklace. Silence fell. Not awkward. Something heavier. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his tone colder than the air-conditioned room. Madison blinked, startled. "The necklace." He stood. "Yes, that necklace. Where did you get it?" Her throat tightened. It belongs to my mother. I borrowed it for the interview." He stepped around the desk, eyes narrowing. "What's your mother's name?" Now she was really confused and scared. "Caroline Clarke." He stopped mid-step. A strange expression flickered across his face. Recognition. And something else. A shadow. He sat down slowly. "Sit, Miss Clarke." She obeyed, unsure whether the interview was over or just beginning. "I knew a Caroline Clarke," he said quietly. "Many years ago. But she vanished. Just disappeared. And that necklace, it was hers. I gave it to her." Madison felt the blood drain from her face. "That can't be. It's been in my family for generations." He looked directly at her, and this time, the charm and professionalism were gone, replaced with something raw, haunted. "I remember every piece I've ever gifted. Especially that one." The room felt smaller now. Madison swallowed hard. What happened to her? He leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. "She left, took something she shouldn't have, and then she vanished." Outside the window, the storm clouds were returning. Inside, Madison realized she might not know her mother at all. The elevator ride down felt longer than the walk into the building. Madison barely noticed the gleaming walls or the soft instrumental music playing above her head. Her mind was in a spiral. She didn't get the job. Or maybe she did. She wasn't sure. After that strange, tense conversation with Mr. Carlisle, the interview had ended abruptly. He'd asked no questions about her experience, her education, or why she wanted to work at Carlisle and Partners. Instead, he'd stared at her like a ghost had walked in. And Madison, confused, nervous, and slightly terrified, had excused herself the first chance she got. The necklace still burned against her skin like a brand. She stepped out into the street, the city air thick with humidity and secrets. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Mom, how did it go?" Smiling face with smiling eyes. Madison stared at the screen. She hesitated, then replied. "Madison, we need to talk. Tonight." She didn't wait for a reply. By the time she got back to her apartment in Brooklyn, the clouds had broken open again. Rain tapped against the window as she unfastened the necklace and placed it gently on her kitchen table, watching it under the flickering fluorescent light. It looked more ominous now than elegant. The door opened just as she was pouring tea. Her mother came in, shaking off a coat and carrying groceries. Caroline Clarke, with her soft smile, freckled cheeks, and eyes that always sparkled with unspoken memories. "You're home early," her mom said. "Don't tell me you nailed it already?" Madison didn't answer. She just held up the necklace. Her mother froze mid-step. "Where did you get that?" she asked, too quickly. Madison raised an eyebrow. "From your jewelry drawer. Same place it's always been." "Mom, who is Henry Carlisle?" The color drained from her mother's face. She sat down slowly, the grocery bag still in her hands. "You met Henry Carlisle?" "I interviewed with him." "Well?" He saw the necklace, and suddenly, it wasn't much of an interview anymore. Caroline closed her eyes. Madison had never seen her mother look scared before. "Mom, tell me the truth. Where did this come from?" Caroline took a long breath, her voice trembling when she spoke. "I didn't steal it. I need you to believe that first." Madison sat across from her, heart pounding. "Okay, but who gave it to you?" There was a long silence before she answered. "Henry did. A long time ago. Before I changed my name. Before everything." Madison's chest tightened. "Changed your name?" "I used to be Caroline Mercer. I worked for Henry's father. I was young, ambitious, stupid. I got involved with Henry. It wasn't supposed to last. But it did. Until I found out what he was involved in." Madison blinked. "What do you mean? What was he involved in?" Caroline stood and began pacing. "His family had money, old money. But not all of it was clean. Art fraud, corporate theft, even rumors about disappearances. I didn't know at first. But then I stumbled onto something. Something I shouldn't have seen." "What did you find?" Caroline stopped. "A ledger, hidden in a safe. I took it. I panicked. I knew they'd come after me. So I disappeared. I changed my name. Moved to Chicago." "Had you?" "You're saying my father." "He wasn't Henry," she said quickly. "You never knew your real father. But Henry believed I betrayed him, that I took more than just a necklace." Madison looked at the pendant again. It gleamed coldly in the dim light. "Did you?" Caroline didn't answer. Outside, thunder cracked. Inside, Madison realized that job interview hadn't been a coincidence. Someone had found them. The storm outside grew louder, as if echoing the turmoil inside Madison's chest. She stared at her mother, trying to decide if she was looking at a stranger. "You didn't answer me," Madison said, her voice tight. "Did you take anything else? This ledger, do you still have it?" Caroline sank into the chair again, hands shaking. "I hid it. Years ago, when I realized how dangerous it was." Madison leaned in. "Where?" Caroline looked at her like a mother might look at a child about to step into traffic. "I can't tell you that." "Mom, if Carlisle's still looking for it, if that's why he reacted the way he did, don't you think I need to know?" Caroline pressed her palms to her temples, as if trying to hold back a flood of memories. "I thought it was over. It's been 23 years. I thought I could finally breathe." Madison's phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. She hesitated, then picked up. A male voice spoke, calm, measured, but chillingly familiar. "Miss Clarke, I hope the rain didn't ruin your necklace." Madison froze. "Mr. Carlisle? I think we got off on the wrong foot this morning," he continued. "I'd like to invite you to dinner. Tomorrow night. My estate in Tarrytown. I'll have a car sent." She didn't respond. "I'm offering a courtesy," he added. "Refusing would be unwise." The line went dead. Madison looked up at her mother, who had gone pale. "He invited me to dinner." "No," Caroline said immediately. "Absolutely not." "I have to," Madison replied. "He's not going to stop." Caroline's voice turned sharp. "You don't understand. He's not just rich, Madison. He's powerful. The kind of man who gets away with things because no one dares challenge him. If he thinks you know something, then maybe I need to know it." Caroline opened her mouth, then closed it again. There was something desperate in her eyes. Regret. Finally, she whispered, "If you go, don't go alone." The next evening, a black town car pulled up outside Madison's building. She wore a simple black dress and a trench coat, the necklace hidden beneath the collar. She had tucked a small voice recorder into her purse, just in case. The ride to Tarrytown took over an hour, winding past forests and old estates until they reached an iron gate. The driver said nothing as the gates opened automatically. Carlisle's estate wasn't just a house. It was a mansion straight out of Gatsby's imagination. Columns, ivy, endless windows. A butler opened the door before she could knock. Inside, it was all polished wood, oil paintings, and hushed footsteps. She was led through a long corridor until she reached the dining room. Henry Carlisle stood by the window, sipping a dark drink. He turned when she entered. "You came. I didn't feel like I had a choice." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sit. Eat. Talk. We have much to discuss." She sat at the long table. Silverware gleamed beside porcelain plates. A single red rose stood in a crystal vase. Henry poured her wine. "Tell me what you know." Madison looked him in the eye. "You tell me first. About my mother. About the ledger." For the first time, his face changed. He looked amused, then impressed. "You're braver than she was." He turned away and walked to a cabinet. Opened it. Pulled something out. A photo. He set it on the table. It was of her mother. Young. Smiling. Standing beside Henry. And holding a baby. Madison felt the air rush out of her lungs. "That's not possible," she whispered. Henry sat back down. "You're not just Caroline's daughter. You're mine." Madison stared at the photograph on the table, her hand frozen halfway to her wine glass. The baby in the picture had her nose, her eyes, and the woman holding her, Caroline, was unmistakable, though younger, lighter, unburdened. "You're lying," Madison said, her voice low. Henry Carlisle didn't flinch. "I thought the same thing when she left, that she had to be lying. But I knew, the moment I saw you in my office. That necklace, your eyes. You are my daughter." She pushed the wine glass aside. "You said she stole from you." He folded his hands. "She did. She took the ledger. And you." Madison's heart thudded like a war drum in her chest. "She left to protect me. That's what she told me." He smirked. "Of course she said that. But Caroline always had a way of rewriting the story. The truth is, she didn't trust me. And maybe she was right. I wasn't a simple man back then. My father had made enemies. The kind who don't just sue you, they bury you." Madison swallowed hard. "And now?" Henry stood and walked slowly around the table. "Now I've built an empire. Legitimate, clean mostly. But that ledger your mother took, it still matters. To the wrong people. It holds records. Names. Secrets worth millions. Secrets people would kill for." "Then why am I here?" she asked, her voice barely steady. "What do you want from me?" He stopped beside her. "I want you to find it." Madison looked up, stunned. "You think I know where it is? You grew up with her. You lived in that house in Chicago, then Queens. Somewhere along the way, she hid it. And if I know Caroline, she made sure you'd stumble across it eventually." She shook her head. "Even if I did, why would I give it to you?" Henry leaned in close. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Because if it falls into the wrong hands, you and your mother won't survive it. And neither will I." Madison stood abruptly, her chair scraping the hardwood floor. "You expect me to save the man who's threatening my family?" "No," he said calmly. "I expect you to survive. And you can't do that without my help. There are others looking for it now. Men without last names. One of them followed you home from the interview." Her blood went cold. Henry walked back to the cabinet, poured himself another drink. "They know who you are now. That's what your mother never understood. Hiding only works until someone lifts the curtain." She stepped toward the door, mind racing. "I'm leaving." He nodded. "Of course. But Madison." She paused. "If you do find it, don't read it. Some truths ruin people." She walked out without another word. Outside, the town car was waiting. She climbed in, heart hammering, her fingers brushing the necklace again. Henry had planted a seed of doubt. And now, the hunt for the truth had begun. By the time Madison reached her apartment, the city was cloaked in night. She didn't turn on the lights. She just stood by the door, heart still pounding from the drive back, eyes adjusting to the dark. "He followed me. Someone followed me." The words replayed in her mind, louder than her mother's old clock ticking in the hallway. She walked into the kitchen and found Caroline sitting at the table, sipping tea like she hadn't just been accused of hiding international secrets for 2 decades. Madison dropped her purse on the counter. "He says he's my father." Caroline didn't even blink. "I figured he'd tell you." Madison sank into the chair across from her. "You knew. All these years, and you never told me." Caroline looked down. "I wanted to. 100 times. But how do you explain a man like him to a child? How do you explain the danger without terrifying you?" "You lied," Madison whispered. "Every birthday, every family tree at school, I filled it out with blanks. I was trying to protect you." "No," Madison said. "You were trying to protect yourself." Caroline didn't argue. That silence hurt more than any denial. After a long pause, Madison asked, "Where's the ledger?" Caroline's gaze snapped up. "You're not seriously." He said people are already looking for it. "And if they find it before we do?" Caroline stood. "It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me." She hesitated, then walked down the hall. Madison followed her into the storage room. Really a glorified closet stuffed with boxes, old coats, and forgotten furniture. Caroline pushed aside a dusty bookcase and ran her fingers along the wall. Then she pressed a small panel. With a soft click, a portion of the wall swung inward. A hidden door. Madison's breath caught. "You've got to be kidding." Inside was a narrow space, no bigger than a walk-in closet. A single shelf. A filing cabinet. Dust everywhere. "This is where I kept everything from my old life," Caroline said. "Until I stopped looking at it altogether." Madison moved to the cabinet, pulling drawers open. Old documents. Fake IDs. Photos from the 90s. Letters in cryptic handwriting. But no ledger. Then, from the bottom drawer, she lifted a worn leather book. Heavy. Cold. Caroline's eyes went wide. "That's not supposed to be here." Madison flipped it open. Inside were names, codes, bank transactions, and dates going back 30 years. Her hands trembled. "Is this it?" "Yes," Caroline whispered. "But we were never supposed to touch it again." Madison closed the book, heart racing. "We don't have a choice now." Behind them, something creaked. They froze. Madison turned slowly, eyes narrowing. The front door, they'd locked it. She grabbed the book and backed toward the wall. Caroline followed her, whispering, "Back way." Through the fire escape. Another creak. A shadow in the hallway. They didn't wait. They ran. The fire escape groaned under their weight as Madison and Caroline climbed out into the humid night air. Madison clutched the leather-bound ledger to her chest, rain drizzling over the slick metal steps. Behind them, the apartment door slammed open with a crash. "They're inside," Madison hissed. "Keep moving," Caroline urged, her voice barely audible over the city's noise below. The fire escape zigzagged down the side of the building. 2 floors, then 1. Madison's hand slipped, but she caught herself. Her heart thundered with each step. Caroline, surprisingly agile, led the way. At the alley below, puddles shimmered in the glow of a flickering street lamp. They jumped the last few feet, landing hard. Madison looked up. A figure leaned out of the window above, black hoodie, face hidden. Watching. She didn't wait. They ran. Their footsteps echoed through the narrow back streets of Brooklyn. Caroline led them past dumpsters, chain-link fences, graffiti-stained walls. Finally, she stopped at a rusted metal door. She banged on it 3 times, paused, then twice more. "What is this?" Madison asked, breathless. "An old favor." The door opened. A man in his 60s peered out. Grizzled, tired eyes. Caroline Mercer. "Well, hell." "Hello, Al," she said. "We need a place. Just for a few hours." He stepped aside without another word. Inside was a mechanic's garage, cluttered with engine parts and old tools. The smell of grease and dust clung to everything. Madison dropped onto a crate, still clutching the book. Al locked the door, then flipped the deadbolt. "You brought heat with you?" Caroline nodded. "The worst kind." He whistled low. "You always did make dramatic entrances." Caroline gave a tired smile. "This is my daughter, Madison." Al looked her over. "She's got your jaw." "Poor girl." Madison didn't laugh. "They knew where we lived. They broke in less than an hour after I left Carlisle's estate." Caroline nodded grimly. Then he was right. They're watching him too. Madison opened the ledger again. She turned to a page near the middle, rows of numbers, wire transfers, initials. "What is this exactly?" she asked. "Evidence," Caroline said. "Carlisle's father laundered money through shell companies, fake charities, art auctions. People who helped him are still around. Senators, CEOs. And now those people want it buried," Madison realized. "Or burned." Suddenly, a bang at the back door. Then another. Al jumped. "That's not the wind." He ran to a side cabinet and pulled out a shotgun. Caroline grabbed Madison's hand. "We have to go? Now." Madison clutched the ledger and followed her through the garage to a side passage, narrow, lit by a single bulb. Behind them, glass shattered. Gunfire cracked. They sprinted out into the night, the city swallowing them whole. They weren't running from secrets anymore. They were running from war. The next morning arrived gray and unforgiving. Madison and Caroline sat huddled in a grimy motel off the highway in Yonkers, the kind of place that smelled like bleach and regret. The ledger lay between them on the bed, its leather cover smudged with fingerprints and rain. Neither had slept. Madison stared at it like it might bite. "We can't keep running. Not forever." Caroline rubbed her temples. "I know, but going to the police isn't an option. They're not just in government. They're in law enforcement too. Henry used to brag about it." Madison stood, pacing. "Then we find a journalist. Someone who'll go public. If this gets out, it's not just our problem anymore." Caroline looked up, surprised. "That's dangerous." "So is being hunted in your own home," Madison snapped. "I don't want to be afraid every time I walk out the door." A pause. Then Caroline said quietly, "There's one person who might help, if she's still alive." Madison stopped pacing. "Who?" Caroline hesitated. "Her name's Julia Mann. She was an investigative reporter back when I worked for Henry's father. She started digging into the Carlisle Foundation until her editor was bribed and she was forced out. She disappeared from public life. But I kept her number, just in case." Madison reached for her mother's bag and pulled out the old flip phone Caroline kept for emergencies. Caroline scrolled through a worn piece of paper with a list of contacts. Most of the numbers long disconnected or dead. Except one. Julia Mann. Caroline pressed call. It rang 4 times. Then, "Who gave you this number?" a gravelly female voice asked. Caroline spoke gently. "It's Caroline Mercer. I need help, and I think you're the only one who can give it." Silence. Then a sigh. "I'm in Beacon. There's a bookstore on Main. Come alone." The call ended. Madison looked at her mother. "We're really doing this?" Caroline nodded. "We have no choice." An hour later, they arrived in Beacon, a quiet town nestled in the Hudson Valley. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful. The bookstore was tucked between a florist and a coffee shop. Inside, the smell of old paper and cinnamon drifted through the air. Julia Mann sat in the back, tucked behind a tower of hard covers. She looked to be in her 70s, with sharp gray eyes and a permanent frown etched into her face. Caroline approached carefully. Julia looked up. "I never thought I'd see you again." Madison stepped forward. "We brought the ledger." Julia's eyebrows lifted. "That thing still exists." Madison pulled it from her bag and handed it over. Julia opened it, her hands surprisingly steady. She scanned a few pages, then closed it. "I can get this to someone who'll publish it. But once it's out there, everything changes. You'll have no peace. No safety. You sure this is what you want?" Madison and Caroline exchanged a look. Madison nodded. "Yes." Julia rose. "Then I'll make some calls. Go back to the motel. I'll contact you in 12 hours. They left the bookstore, a fragile thread of hope tugging behind them. But across the street, a black SUV had parked. Inside, a man was watching. He picked up his phone. "They have it." And they just handed it to a reporter. A pause. Then the voice on the other end. "Make sure they don't live to regret it." Rain returned that evening, tapping gently on the motel window, as if mocking the silence inside. Madison lay on the bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. Caroline sat beside the window, eyes scanning the parking lot below like a soldier waiting for movement. They hadn't spoken much since Beacon. The weight of what they'd handed over, to a stranger, even one her mother trusted, pressed heavy on Madison's chest. But it was too late to take it back. They'd set fire to a secret. Now they waited for the world to smell the smoke. At 11:42 p.m., a soft knock came at the door. 3 taps. No more. Caroline stood immediately. That's not her knock. Madison froze. It's too early. The knock came again. Louder. Caroline backed away from the door, whispering, "Get your things. Now." Madison grabbed her bag and the burner phone. Caroline pulled a small handgun from her coat pocket, something Madison didn't even know she had. "Bathroom window," Caroline said. They moved fast. Madison crawled out first, onto the metal roof of the motel laundry room. Caroline followed, wincing at the creak of the frame. Rain slicked the metal as they crept toward the fire escape. Below, a black SUV idled. Same as Beacon. Same as outside their apartment days ago. A door opened. A figure stepped out, tall, coat draped over broad shoulders, face hidden under a cap. He looked up directly at the roof. "He knows we're here," Madison whispered. A shot rang out. The metal gutter beside Madison exploded into sparks. "Go!" Caroline shouted. They scrambled down the fire escape, slipping once, catching each other. Behind them, another figure emerged from the SUV. Madison hit the pavement running. A second later, tires squealed from the far end of the alley, another black car blocking their path. They were trapped. Caroline looked around, eyes scanning, then pointed to a narrow drainage tunnel behind the dumpster. In there, Madison hesitated. Are you serious? Caroline shoved her toward it. Move. They ducked into the tunnel just as more shots rang out. Madison slipped in ankle-deep water, heart hammering in her throat. They crawled in silence, the tunnel getting darker and colder with every inch. When they finally emerged, soaked and shivering, they were 3 blocks away near a grocery store's loading dock. They kept walking until the lights of a 24-hour diner appeared in the distance. They ducked into a booth, breathless, dripping. Madison grabbed a napkin and wiped her face. They were going to kill us. Caroline nodded grimly. And they're not done. A waitress appeared. You two all right? Madison forced a smile. Just got caught in the rain. As soon as the waitress walked away, Caroline whispered, They found us too fast. That means someone talked. Madison stared at her. You think Julia? I don't know. But we can't trust anyone now. Suddenly, Madison's phone buzzed. The burner. A single message. Unknown number. Your friend has 12 hours. After that, the story dies with her. Beneath the text was a photo. Julia Mann, bound and gagged, eyes wide with terror. Madison's hands trembled as she held the phone. The image of Julia, tied to a chair, bruised, eyes pleading, burned into her brain. They have her, she whispered. Caroline leaned in, jaw tight. Then we don't have 12 hours. We have maybe 6. Madison stared out the diner window. Headlights blurred in the rain. Every face outside suddenly suspicious. They'll kill her if we don't do something. Caroline took the phone and reread the message. They didn't say what they want. That means it's leverage. They think we still have the ledger. But we don't, Madison said. Julia has it. Or had it. Caroline stood. Then we make them think we still do. By sunrise, they were back in Manhattan. Madison stood outside Carlisle's skyscraper again, this time with wet hair and bags under her eyes. Security eyed her warily as she walked through the front doors. No appointment, no hesitation. She took the elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, Carlisle was waiting. You're early, he said calmly. You're a father. Act like it. His face darkened. What happened? They took Julia. He didn't flinch. I told you they were watching. They're always watching. Madison stepped closer. They think we still have the ledger. We don't. But we can use that. Carlisle looked at her for a long moment, then turned to the window. You're suggesting bait. She's going to die if we don't. His voice was cold. And if we act too soon, you might join her. Madison met his eyes. Then we need to act smart. Carlisle slowly smiled. You sound more like a Carlisle every day. An hour later, Madison sat alone in a hotel suite overlooking Central Park, a fake ledger planted in her bag, a tracker in the lining of her coat. The message was sent out to the anonymous number. I have what you want. Come get it. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then, knock, knock. She opened the door. A man in black stood there, silent. He raised his hand. Madison's world went dark. Madison awoke to the sharp sting of cold air on her face. Her head throbbed. She was strapped to a chair, wrists bound with zip ties, in a concrete room with no windows. A single bulb flickered above. Across from her sat Julia Mann, bloodied, barely conscious. Julia, Madison whispered. Can you hear me? Julia groaned softly, eyelids fluttering. The door creaked open. 2 men entered, one tall and lean, the other short with thick forearms. Behind them, Henry Carlisle. Madison's breath caught. You? Carlisle walked in slowly, eyes heavy. It wasn't supposed to go this far. You're with them? He shook his head. No, I'm trying to contain them. The short man grunted. You said she had it. She does, Carlisle replied. Or she thinks she does. The tall man stepped forward and yanked Madison's bag open. He pulled out the fake ledger and flipped through it. Blank pages between real ones. Carefully faked. He scowled. This isn't the original. It was never going to be, Madison said through gritted teeth. You take this, she dies anyway. Carlisle looked at her. Where's the real one? I gave it to someone else. If I don't check in within 2 hours, it goes public. Every page. The room fell silent. Julia coughed, blood on her lips. She's not bluffing. Carlisle's expression hardened. Then it's over. He turned to the two men. Let them go. The tall one hesitated. What about your father's legacy? Carlisle glanced back at Madison. He buried the truth. Maybe it's time someone dug it up. An hour later, Julia and Madison were released on a quiet roadside. Carlisle disappeared, along with the fake ledger. Caroline picked them up in silence. Back at their apartment, now cleared and quiet, Madison handed Julia a new drive. Send it, Madison said. Julia met her gaze. You sure? Madison nodded. The world deserves to know who these people are. The next morning, headlines across the nation read, The Carlisle Files, a legacy of fraud and power. The empire shook, and for the first time, Madison Clarke stepped out into daylight, not as someone running from a past, but someone rewriting it.